I know we ought to be getting used to this kind of thing by now, but I'm not.
This has been prescribed for many years for people to combat malaria, which was a big problem, and it's very effective. It's a strong drug. So we'll see.
It was fairly effective against SARS.
It was, as I understand that, is that a correct statement? It was fairly effective on SARS.
John, you've got to be careful when you say fairly effective. It was never done in a clinical trial that compared it to anything.
You've got to be very careful when you say fairly effective. President Trump today, again, just flat out wrong in public about this malaria drug that has gotten stuck in his mind quite some distance from the facts. Yesterday, President Trump proclaimed that that drug had been approved as a coronavirus treatment and would be available almost immediately for use. Within moments, the FDA had to clean that up because that is not true at all. It is not at all approved for coronavirus treatment. But the president loves saying things like, you know, there's a drug we've got. It's very effective. It's approved already. Everybody's going to get it. He loves saying things like that because that would be a lovely thing to be able to tell people. Unless, of course, that's not true, in which case telling people a fairy tale like that is cruel and harmful and needlessly diverting and wildly irresponsible from anyone in any leadership role. It's actually wildly irresponsible if somebody said that to you from a bar stool, if any of us could go to bars anymore. But to get that from somebody at the presidential podium? Nevertheless, he keeps doing it. In the weeks leading up to now, we have repeatedly heard claims from the president that the virus was well contained, that it was well under control, that it was going to disappear. Remember that? Like a miracle, he said it was going to disappear. In terms of material, tangible promises, President Trump claimed that we'd have 1.4 million tests available this week. Of course, we've seen nowhere near that. We've done about a tenth of that. Last week, Trump announced that Google was developing a website to help people decide if they needed testing and where they could go to get it. It was going to be very quickly done, he said, unlike websites of the past. Turns out, of course, that website is still in the early stages of development, and currently it's only being tested in one part of California, and it's not even really working just for that. President Trump announced this week that the Navy was sending 2 medical ships, one to New York City, one to the West Coast, to help treat patients. He said those ships would be launched over the next week or so, depending on need. Wrong. That was also wrong. As NBC's Courtney Kuby puts it, quote, it's anybody's guess as to when those ships will come in. One of those ships is currently undergoing maintenance. It has no medical personnel on board. The other one is also undergoing maintenance, and it lacks a medical crew altogether. Remember, the president said it'll be there next week. It won't be there next week. The president has claimed that the government has, quote, massive amounts of ventilators. Maybe in normal times, I guess you might say that, but in a crisis like this, the government's stockpile of ventilators will not be nearly enough to satisfy the demand. We need literally tens of thousands more than we have. He has said similar things about face masks and other protective equipment for health workers. He told a group of nurses this past week that the government had ordered 500 million N95 respirator masks. He declined to mention that order will take 18 months to fill, if we're lucky. Millions of masks. Don't worry. Oh, nurses, what are you worrying about? Millions of masks are coming. You just need to wait a year and a half before you might. I mean, there is a clear pattern here in this crisis of the president promising stuff that he knows America would love to hear, but it's not true. And even stuff that he's saying that he will do, that the federal government will do, he's not doing. And so the specific way in which the president is failing now is clear. We have said from the very beginning, watch what they do, not what they say. That's very, very, very relevant here. And I say this not to vent my outrage or anything. I am over that, frankly, at this point. I'm just saying it because I feel like we should inoculate ourselves against the harmful impact of these ongoing false promises and false statements by the president by recognizing that when he is talking about the coronavirus epidemic, more often than not, he is lying. Even when he's talking about what he has done or what he will do, he is consistently lying and giving you happy talk that is stuff that the federal government isn't actually doing. And it's making people around the country count on the fact that the federal government is doing that stuff when they're not. I mean, there may be other people in the federal government who are saying things that are true, but these daily briefings from the White House are a litany of things from the president that would be awesome if they were true, if they were happening, but they're not. And so the sooner we come to terms with that, I think the better for all of us. If it were up to me, and it's not, I would stop putting those briefings on live TV. Not out of spite, but because it's misinformation. If the president does end up saying anything true, you can run it as tape. But if he keeps lying like he has been every day on stuff this important, all of us should stop broadcasting it. Honestly, it's going to cost lives.